Ashton with Keller Williams Realty, coming to you live on Wednesdays from now on. Missed last week because my little ones were sick. Everyone got a cold and was put under for a little over a week. So I missed last Wednesday, but coming back to you again live today to talk about real estate questions. This week I had a really interesting question come up that I haven't talked to anyone about for a while. So I wanted to talk to you guys about it a little bit more because I feel like it's become more popular again. So let's talk about tiny houses. Tiny houses, like Tiny House Nation, Tiny House Hunters, those HGTV shows have really made it sound like a really feasible and possible option for a lot of people with small budgets. And I want to preface this by saying that I'm not discouraging tiny houses. I really love the idea. And a few years ago, I looked into it myself for myself to do because I thought that it would just get our family back to a really wholesome type of lifestyle where I didn't have to work as much in order to be able to carry rent and mortgage, and it would be simpler and you know, this kind of utopia lifestyle that I always wanted for my family. And I found out that it's not necessarily that simple. So let's break it down a little bit and let's talk about it. First of all, what is a tiny house? That's entirely up to your standard definition. Typically, tiny houses are something that's under 600 square feet, okay? And they can be, you know, really tiny, under 200 square feet. They can be 400 square feet. I have seen tiny houses over 600 square feet, but then you get into all sorts of arguments about, is that a true tiny house or is it just a small house? Typically, they're prefabricated. They can be on foundations or they can be on skids, which is like what your garden shed is put on. It's put on a wooden platform rather than like a concrete or block foundation. Or they can be on wheels. They can be put on trailers. So if it's a tiny house on foundation, then at that point, it falls within your regular construction category. If you're building a house, you have to meet all of the same permitting requirements and everything else, no matter if it's a 2,000 square foot house or if it's a 450 foot tiny house. You still have to meet permitting requirements, construction requirements, code, everything else. Some counties have restrictions on how small a house can be in order to be considered livable square footage, okay? So for example, these are not like specific code numbers, okay? For example, Snohomish County, which is the county we're in, could have a restriction that a house has to be over 650 square feet in order to be considered a livable space, okay? Anything under that falls into an outbuilding. Congrats, you've got a she shed. You don't actually have a house. And they will not allow you to use it as a primary residence, okay? If you use it as a primary residence, then you risk code enforcement coming out and forcibly evicting you, fining you, etc. Okay. If you are on a trailer, a tiny house on wheels, okay, then you fall within the category of an RV, okay? So that means when you are looking for places to park for a permanent time frame, you need to look for properties that do not have HOAs and CC&Rs that prohibit the use of RV living or RV parking on the property or anything like that. And there are a lot of areas, Snohomish County, I know, does not allow you to live in an RV more than 6 months. So you can live in your RV, but then you have to move it. So, I mean, I've seen people get 2 spots side by side, 2 parcels of land, and they live in this one for 6 months, and then at the 6-month mark, they move it, 5 feet across the border, and now it's on this property instead, and they live in this one for 6 months. But you have to literally move it, okay? So that's an option. You can just park it in the woods, as long as there's no HOA or CCNRs. You can just park it in the woods and just hope that your neighbors don't do anything. I mean, code enforcement doesn't check up on everybody's house. Code enforcement comes out when a neighbor files a complaint and notifies code enforcement there is someone there, okay? So I know of a couple of people who live outside of Cedar Woolley, out towards Concrete. They live in a recreational neighborhood where it specifically specifies in the HOAs and CCNRs that there can be no permanent residences there. It is recreational only. You are only permitted to live there for a certain number of weeks before you have to leave. Everyone in that neighborhood ignores it. Over half the people who live there as a permanent residence. So the people who live there don't complain. They don't notify code enforcement that there are people with primary residences there. And so it's just kind of like a hush-hush understood situation. However, if one person moved into the neighborhood, got really upset, like, this is supposed to be a campground, we shouldn't have primary residences here, and they made a notification to code enforcement would come out, they would give notices, they could give fees, and they could potentially forcibly evict the person. I mean, they could take it pretty high, okay? So it's not necessarily so simple, okay? Also, I've seen a lot of like YouTube videos and stuff that made it seem so cheap. Like this was such an affordable option. Woo! Like single mom builds a tiny house on a trailer with recycled materials for $1,500. That's not a thing, okay? It has to be permitted every step of the way in order to receive insurance and licensing, and you can't be living in something or driving something along the freeway if it is not licensed, if it's not permitted. So RVs, manufactured homes, they all receive like a manufacturing permit that says that they have been built to a specific code. They are safe, they can be insured, they are licensed. I can't just slap together a house out of pallets and junk that I've pulled from my neighbor's greenhouse and say I built my own tiny house. It has to be permitted along every step of the way. Otherwise, again, you risk code enforcement and everything else. So I don't want this to be like super discouraging. If you have tiny house dreams, awesome. I love it. I love the lifestyle. I love everything that it means. It's absolutely fantastic. But I do just want to explain to people that it's maybe not quite so simple, straightforward, and certainly not budget friendly. Tiny houses, tiny houses can be as low as $30,000, but you have to also buy the land. You have to also buy the, pay for utilities to be brought out and connected. And that none of that is financeable. That all has to be cash out of pocket. So at the bare minimum, you're looking at $250,000 cash out of pocket. So I don't know about you, but I don't have $250,000 cash in pocket to be able to start myself on a tiny house dream. The most affordable option for people who are looking for affordability is to go with a zero down first time home buyers program that allows you to be able to put nothing as a down payment, and you can move into a house just with closing costs and fees. I have been able to help people get into homes for as low as $1,500, $1,600. Mind blown, okay? That is a traditional house with a traditional home loan though, okay? So for your most affordable option is to go the traditional route. If you're all about the lifestyle, I don't want to discourage you. Tiny houses can be amazing, and I love everything that they represent, but they are certainly not an easy path forward or affordable. I would love to chat with you guys more about exactly what costs are involved with all of that, and everything that you would have to look into a little bit stronger if you are looking for land to put down your tiny house on, or if you want to drive it across country, but you want to make sure that you're not going to get pulled over by state troopers and you're going to have a place to park at night. I'd be happy to talk to you about that. There are a lot of Facebook groups that focus on tiny house living, tiny house travels, permanent tiny houses on wheels, and I would definitely recommend that you check those out. Just remember, across the country, tiny house laws are different, and even within different counties in different states, tiny house laws are different. So make sure that you check with your state what the tiny house laws are, and check with the county what tiny house laws are, and let's chat. If you want to go tiny house, I'm happy to help you work with figuring out what land to purchase. If you feel like, you know what, this sounds like, I thought tiny house, tiny budget, and that's not the case. I need to figure out what my other options are for my budget. Then let's chat more about exactly what a zero down home loan looks like, and how we can get you into an affordable house. Thanks so much. You guys always drop comments below. Feel free to message me. I am always here and happy to talk to you about your real estate questions or needs or plans or goals, whatever they may be. I am in Western Washington in Snohomish County, but I work all across Western Washington to help my clients, and I network with agents all across the country. So even if you're not in my area, let me know, reach out, and I'd be happy to connect you with an agent that's more local to you. Have a fantastic week, and I will see you guys next week. Let me know what you would like me to talk about next week in the comments, and I will see you guys later. Bye.